Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Before I crack open my iPad to draw, let's talk about some preliminary sketches for today's drawing. I sketched and kind of planned out a potential pose or two and just some random sketches of who I wanted to draw. As for the character I'm drawing Sakuma Rei. So Rei is from the rhythm game Ensemble Stars music, and I have talked about this game a little bit as I am a big fan of it, but if you are unfamiliar, this is Ensemble Stars.
Ensemble Stars Music.
Basically, you play the role of a producer to help out several idols towards their dreams, and you can learn a little bit more about each of the characters from the main story or from event or campaign or idol stories. You basically start off with cards of characters, and there are different rarities from 1 to 5, and some of the cards you can also bloom at certain levels. Bloom cards have different illustrations too, which I find those illustrations super pretty, and I definitely want to do some kind of like studies or take more inspiration from them because they got dynamic poses and beautiful coloring. You obtain cards from the scout system. So scout system is basically the way how you summon for characters. You use diamonds or tickets to scout, and they're often new event banners, as you can see here. Audition scout is kind of like the general banner. You can gain tickets from doing live shows, so I'll do a summon on that one as well as one on the event banner. I kind of like Arashi a little bit more than Natsume, so let's summon on their banner. Blue is basically a 3-star, gold is a 4-star, and rainbow is a 5-star, so if you're looking out for kind of visual cues, there you go. You can also send your idols to do some idol work to gather materials that allow you to craft new outfits for them. They can also kind of hang out in this little cute department room, which you can decorate, and sometimes the idols interact with the different furniture and items that you place into the room. Clicking live stage allows you to do some live shows, which is kind of like the main part of the gameplay. There you can use the characters that you've gotten from your cards to help clear the live show. You can select any character and set whoever you like to be the center or have a solo. You can't have a duplicate of the character within your roster, but you can place whoever you would like, as well as 2 support characters. So basically, leveling up your characters on Idol Road also helps you earn bigger scores, as well as just leveling up your character in general. Different songs are different colors. There's like red, blue, green, and yellow, and as well as like a multicolored one or rainbow colored. And basically matching and collecting cards that have similar colors to them will earn you bigger bonuses or just helps you clear the live a little bit better. I'll show you guys a little bit of the gameplay pretty briefly, but if you're interested in a cute rhythm game with pretty art and fun events, then do check out Ensemble Stars music. They're always adding new songs pretty frequently, and there's quite a few events going on every so often, so I think it's quite fun and there's lots of things to do during the gameplay. Even if you're not too much into gaming or just mobile games in general, I do highly recommend listening to some of their songs because they have some really good songs. Thank you again to Ensemble Stars Music for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back into drawing Sakuma Rei. Okay, so let me pull up my iPad so we can draw this digitally. I kind of had a plan going into this and I kind of didn't. I will also show you guys that I'm going to be using a different sized canvas this time. I decided to see if I could go a little bit larger, so I'm doing I think 11 by 17, which is a larger print size, and I did notice that there is a little bit of lagging when whenever I use a larger canvas like this. But I wanted to stick with it because I thought it'd be nice to see if I could do a full body pose or as full body as I could for this piece. So for Sakuma Rei, I'm just going to call him Rei for the rest of this video. I am using his God of Tranquil Shadows outfit, which I do believe is going to be an upcoming event pretty soon in Ensemble Stars. But you can see that even though I did some preliminary sketches in my sketchbook, I wanted to kind of test out some other poses to see what I could fit for this. I was also experimenting to see if I would cut it off near his hips rather than keeping in like the full body, because I was kind of already planning on keeping the canvas long, so maybe I should have made him look like he's either sitting or a floating pose might work well. And I already had kind of an idea for the background. So I kind of wanted to do more of like a sky scene, so which kind of meant like he would be either flying or floating, and the way how I already have him positioned was kind of working first. Maybe kind of like a floating pose. I kind of wish I didn't draw him as stiff. That's something I'm probably gonna need to work on a little bit more. I think it's easier if I'm doing like a jumping pose or something to do with like wind or a draft, but I think because I was focusing on trying to make sure some of the details and everything look a little bit more accurate, I kind of threw that out of the window a little bit. But I'm also approaching this a little bit differently because I'm drawing him as like a full body and not just like a headshot. Usually I would sketch everything more or less on one layer and just kind of tweaking as I go. But because I have to consider the body a little bit more for this piece, I decided to dim down my sketch and to draw over it, just so we can keep things a little bit cleaner. I'm going to be doing a lot of adjusting after I do the sketch, as well as after I do kind of the rough coloring for this piece as well. So in my sketchbook, I also drew his face twice, both looking a little bit on the derpier side, but I wanted to do it only because I personally wanted to kind of figure out his hair. So Rei is actually one of the characters in the very beginning when I started playing Ensemble Stars that caught my eye. And he's kind of intimidating in a sense as well. I don't know if it's because he's more of that cool type, a little bit more like Ikemen. So usually it's those kind of characters I have a little bit troubles drawing, because even if you look at my version right now, he still looks a little bit more on the cuter side. I didn't give him like a much sharper face. He looks a little bit younger. It's more stuff I should try to work more towards. Is definitely I want to draw more like Bishonen men, I guess, if that makes sense. So but for his outfit, I definitely wanted to see if I could encapsulate a lot of the detailing if I could, which, like I said, might have contributed to the fact that some things looked a little bit too stiff. But I really like the, I don't know what you call them, accessories and just like the detailing on his outfit. It's really pretty. And if you guys ever have a chance to look at the God of Tranquil Shadows card, I think a lot of you guys would like the artwork. I've mentioned this before, or at least at the beginning of this video, that if you guys are ever interested in looking up like dynamic poses or just beautiful ways of keeping coloring simple but very like attractive looking, very vibrant, very almost like sparkly, right? Take a look at Ensemble Stars artwork for the game. It's seriously one of my favorites. I highly recommend looking at 5-star cards if you can, or 4-star cards. And the reason why I'm saying 4-star cards and 5-star cards are the ones I'm going to be recommending if you're interested in this game visually is that the 3 and below have a little bit of a much more simple style. You can see that there's a little bit less detail, or less focusing on the lighting or making things look like it's super actiony or like super flowy. It's usually the character just standing there kind of like in the middle of the card kind of thing. But for the 4-star cards and the 5-star cards, especially like bloomed cards, I find super dynamic. There's a lot of fun lighting, sparkles, and like all that jazz. And then a lot of times the 4-star cards, I guess like both of them, unbloomed or bloomed, they have some really nice angles or just like dynamic poses, some foreshortening and all that jazz. So yeah, highly recommend it. I don't know, I think during like con prep earlier this year, I think for Oda Fest prepping, and I was waiting like for things to be printed on my computer, like from my printer, and my printer takes quite a bit of time because it is a photo printer. But when I was doing that, I was drawing Tsukasa a lot because I was just admiring the cards. He's so adorable and so cute. So yeah. But back to the illustration, let's talk a little bit about what things I added first of all. So besides the fact that the lighting has changed quite a bit sometimes throughout the whole piece, because I'm kind of recording on multiple days, so I decided that I wanted to keep the idea of him having a rose. I kind of wanted to add a little bit of more like red into the whole composition, or at least like some pops of colors, because his outfit is very much like it's black, a little bit of like either dark muted blues or purples, and then he has like a lot of white and gold, and obviously black for his hair, red for his eyes. So I thought the red from the rose could fit with his eye color as well. So initially I also placed a little bit of indication of what I wanted for the background, and I think you'll see in the time lapse a little bit later, I actually had the sky being blue and a little bit more vibrant towards like a cooler palette. I decided to switch it up and do more of a sunset because I'm really into these like orange clouds with really bright lighting, but the shadows for the clouds are more like a teal or a blue or a green. I just really like this color combination like a heck of a lot, so I want to incorporate it into more like backgrounds or scenery and stuff if I can. So I've been kind of playing around with this kind of like sky theme. I'm gonna be covering up a good portion of it, sadly, because I wanted to add some pillars into the composition just because I don't want it to be just an open sky, even though I adore the sky background and it kind of looks a little bit more tranquil, so it might have fit the composition stuff or the atmosphere a little bit better. But I decided to put in some pillars, and I'm going to wrap the pillars around with some leaves and some roses as well. And I think it's just because I wanted to add in the rose to kind of tie with the one that he is holding so that it's not the only red object in the entire piece. But I am gonna be adding some extra lighting as well as some petals flowing through the wind, so it won't be too out of place, the rose that is. So yeah, spent some time rendering a little bit of the pillars, adding some extra drop shadows and everything like that. I am going to be blurring a little bit of the background just to keep it a little bit more atmospheric, and also I do not have the patience to fully render a background. It requires me to look up so much reference, and I didn't do that prior to doing this. Next time if I do a background that requires a little bit more detail, I'll definitely do that. Also, I know some people have been telling me when I do the selection tool that I don't have to keep hitting add, and some people said all you have to do is click the little circle, and I never understood what this meant until I accidentally did it, but I understand now that that's a much quicker way of making a new selection and kind of adding it towards the other selection that you already made. So yeah, just quicker things to help your process go a little bit faster. So like I said, I wanted to add the leaves wrapping around each of the pillars, so that is what I have here. I'm just adding a little bit of detail to each of the leaves here and there so that even when I kind of blur it, it doesn't look super flat. I want to have a little bit of dimension here and there, so that is what I wanted to do. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to talk about though, because I think this is like a good opportunity for me to gush a little bit about Ensemble Stars. You guys know that like I've always wanted to make more Ensemble Stars fan art, and I definitely will continue. There's plenty of characters and different outfits that I've seen because this game has been released in, I believe, in Japan and maybe China as well. But because I am playing the English version, we are several years behind, but at least that gives me a little bit of clairvoyance in terms of which person I'm going to be saving for. Hence why when I was showing you guys the game earlier, I didn't do like a mass summoning or scouting at the very beginning because I'm saving for Tsukasa. So yeah, or a hero. There's like two cards I really want. So White Lily, I think it's called Hiro, and then there's another one for Tsukasa who has a real like beautiful regal outfit that I absolutely adore. So now that the background is more or less done, I definitely blurred it out quite a bit. I did it in a two-step process though, so I've done this in some other pieces as well. So I know a lot of you guys know that I like to Gaussian blur the background if I want to create more of a sense of depth by making the background seem not in focus by blurring it. But if I need to have even more depth within the background, excluding the character, I will duplicate the background once and then blur it, duplicate the background that's been blurred and blur it again, and then subtly erase each part of the layer that I want to be in focus a little bit so that we can kind of pick and choose how much we want the background to be blurred. So that is what I did. Kind of left the left side a little bit more in focus compared to the right side, as the left side is coming towards us and the right side is going away from us. And then after that, changed the sketch to more of a warmer color, as well as changed it to a multiply bend mode so that we can start to color in kind of like our base tones or rough coloring and stuff. I did the coloring a lot more roughly this time, but I think the entire rendering process actually wasn't too bad, luckily. So yeah, just kind of picking and choosing color, as well as the lighting. At least for me, I didn't make it too drastic. So technically, looking at him, he might be, or supposedly supposed to be like backlit, but I definitely did not do that. I kind of kept the lighting super subtle. So when I add an additional layer at the very end to the whole thing of Rei, I will keep it kind of more of a rim lighting on the right side, if anything. So speaking a little bit more about Sakuma Rei, so a previous event that I was playing, I read the timing and duration incorrectly. So I think there was a card for him that I actually really liked. Like I said, I like a lot of the 5-star cards as well as the 4-star cards. But the 5-star card that you could get for Rei at the time was part of a tour event. So you basically have to clear out different missions per tour day, and need to collect basically stars from the mission. So when you clear a mission, you get a star, and there's like 3 stars you can collect per tour day. But tour days does not equate to like days of the week or anything like that. It's just basically you clear 4 songs, you move on to the next day kind of thing. And I believe on day 20, you need like a certain amount of stars to unlock day 20, but also once you clear day 20, you can receive a 4-star card, which I do not remember who it was. I think it might be Kiryu. I think that's his name. I don't remember some of their names because I'm super hyper fixated on certain characters more than others, but I do like all the characters in Ensemble Stars and I like their aesthetic, but I just have a hard time remembering some of their names. And then I don't remember who else was the other one, but I believe I chose the other person as the card. And if you earn enough points as well in the event, you can unlock some of the cards as well, just because they're point rewards. But the 5-star card that you can get at the end of the tour day, which is on day 30, you need a certain amount of stars as well. But because I paced it incorrectly, even if I used all my whistles, I think I wouldn't have gotten to Rei. So I'm Rei-less at this point. I have no 5-star cards of him. I have no 4-star cards of him. I have, I think, 1 3-star card. I think, if not, it's like the 2-star card or like just whatever the default is. Yeah, I do want to summon him in the future, or maybe I'll wait until like a rerun, because that one's super pretty. Highly recommend you guys search up the cards and stuff, because I think he's like a really pretty, what is it? Like a purple outfit. It's super pretty. It's just like a purple shawl, and like he looks like he's dancing, and it's, I don't know, it's really pretty. That's all I can say. But yeah, now that I'm finished with the coloring, I changed some of the line work a little bit here. So I do that by alpha locking the sketch and then just painting over it. I know I've gotten a question, and maybe I should do a short video about answering some simple questions about digital drawing that can be answered like super quickly. The difference between alpha locking and clipping layer, or layer clipping. So layer clipping requires you to make a new layer and clipping that layer to a mother layer, or like a matrix layer. Basically whatever layer you're planning to really keep or contain the colors into. And that's really good if you would like to maintain and not touch upon like your mother layer, like your main layer. But if you're doing alpha locking, it's a little bit more quicker if you're making like quick changes, or you don't really care that you're covering up whatever your main layer is. So alpha locking is literally just locking the pixels that are on that current layer. So you're keeping everything contained on whatever you drew prior to locking it. And for layer clipping, it's just basically you make a new layer and that one's like attached to your, what I would consider like your mother layer. But yeah, I'll think about making like a simple tips thing or things you should know about digital art in general, about like the differences, maybe I'll see if I can do that. I feel like some of them are a little bit redundant and there's already videos out there that talk about it, but yeah, if not, I will find some resources and link that into a future video so that you guys can learn a little bit more about it. Because I definitely, when I first started using Paint Tool Sai, I searched up a bunch of things that I did not know how to do, such as like layer clipping, like expanding and shrinking of pixels, what the pencil selection tool was, how to properly use like lasso tool, and like other things like anti-alias and all that jazz. So yeah, if you have any questions, always ask Google first or YouTube or whichever. So for the drawing, I merged pretty much all the layers minus the little, what is it called, like the foreground elements, because I did do the little leaves or like little shattered light thingies coming in front of him, and I actually added as well. I duplicated it, changed it to addition so that it looks like it's glowing, used Gaussian blur to soften it, and then I motion blurred a few of them so it looks like they're kind of passing by, kind of adding a little bit of movement. But yeah, everything other than that is kind of merged down. So I merged the addition layer and the sketch onto the main color layer, and this is not merged with my background layer. So there's like some pieces I've done in the past of some other portraits that I've done videos of, and I would have always merged my background alongside with the character that I was drawing, and oh my god, I really should have separated them earlier. For some reason I never did. I think it's also because when you change your sketch to multiply or anything to multiply, white is not an option for multiply. White is nothing in multiply, but once you merge multiply down and there's nothing underneath that layer or that line or whatever you place that has the multiply blend mode on, it will revert back to the normal color it was originally. So oftentimes when I do the sketch and I'm coloring underneath and my sketch is set to multiply, so as long as the color underneath is under my sketch, the sketch will remain the color that I have it set to at the multiply. But once I merge it and there's like lines that are not being covered underneath, they revert back to like usually a pale muted purple, because that's usually the color I opt to when I switch my sketch color. And sometimes when I have like a dark background, these lines like stick out like a sore thumb. But I've combated that a little bit from time to time, because I will remember before merging, I will just change the outline color to be a lot darker prior to merging it. It's just like personal problems I have when I'm working with this kind of process. But for me, it's like, I think it's smarter for me not to merge the background with the character. It makes it a lot easier for myself to be able to switch colors. I think you guys might have saw like if you came to like a previous, I think my last live stream where I was drawing, I think Alban in more of a, like a winter outfit, I went through 3 to 4 backgrounds. So I went from like bluish purple to more of a like an orangey color, and then I switched it to more of a pinky purple color, and then I think I switched it entirely because they were more like cloud backgrounds, but I switched to more of a like a winter background. So I made it a bit more of like muted blues, and then I had like tree shadows in the back, and then some branches and some like white flowers in front, which I think I liked a lot better. But I wouldn't have had that liberty to change the background so easily if I'd put it on the same layer as the character, which would have been a big problem, because I probably wouldn't have liked the piece otherwise. So yeah. But yeah, for the most part, rendering for Rei wasn't too big of a problem. I noticed that there was some details that got lost, as well as I didn't really show it in the video, but you guys will see it in the time lapse, that I kind of cropped Rei's head a little bit and adjusted the arm as well as the hand to be a little bit smaller. And sometimes it's easier for me to liquefy things after I've done the coloring and everything, or I wanted to do it because like by the time I get to the rendering cleaning up stage, it's much easier for me to paint in the missing parts. So you'll see like on his I guess it's on the right side of the page, so the right shoulder, there's like a whole gap or like parts where it looks a little scrambled. That's because of me basically lassoing Rei's head and hair together so I could shrink it, because if you looked in the beginning, his head was kind of massive compared to the rest of his body. I know I'd drawn his torso a little bit long, but when I pulled up his legs a little bit and his waist, it just looked a bit weird. I think it's also because I didn't really curve his spine, and your spine would be a little bit more curved. I think it's because like in the beginning I did wanted to have him on like more of a sitting pose. So if you ever seen the God of Tranquil Shadows card for Rei, you can see that he's kind of standing on some kind of like architectural surface, whether or not it's like a balcony or something like that. And I kind of wanted him to be sitting on the edge in a way, and his legs are kind of just up and over it, if that makes sense. But I changed the pose like several times in my brain, so I decided that I would rather go with something like this. Yeah, I don't know. There's some things I would like to fix, but I feel like I just needed that little bit of push to allow myself to do something that's more considered like a full body piece. Because one thing I don't like about when I try to think about full body pieces is that I need a kind of like an extremely long canvas to fit the whole body, because like if you draw like just the standing pose and you're just drawing the character itself, maybe if you're not doing a background or anything, the canvas size is literally just going to be the length of your character, which looks kind of weird. So usually I would either want to include a background or make sure the character is doing something, or if I'm doing a more dynamic pose, I rather have the body a little bit stretched or curled up, kind of scrunched up, or having a little bit more foreshortening or something to make the pose look less like straight on stickman T-pose kind of thing. It's something I would like to work on in the future, and maybe it's something that I should use like more gesture studies and stuff for, because I notice a lot of the times whenever I draw heads or like the neck and torso or the shoulders, there's like a pose that I default to 100% just out of comfort. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like if you're told to draw like a character and you get absolute free reign over it, do you draw it facing to the left or the right? Like, or do you draw it straight on? Maybe you're more comfortable that way. For me, I think I like drawing people straight on or facing to the left of the canvas for the most part. Because drawing anyone looking to the right of the canvas, I feel like they just look a little bit more off to me. But yeah, I think that's also just personal preference and what you've done like more compared to the other one. I feel like I might have missed a little bit of a gold stripe near the opening for his hip. I kind of wish I drew the outfit again. I really, really do like the outfit for it. It's kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like regal, but it's also a little bit more like timely in terms of it feels more towards like ancient times, but some parts seem a little bit more like, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not very good with like time periods and anything like that. Like I get my Renaissance mixed up, or like Baroque period. What's the other one? I keep forgetting. I took art history a long time ago, but I used to know like the different periods and like different elements and stuff. But I know these probably are more affiliated with like certain countries or areas at the time. So yeah, that's maybe why I'm blanking on the terminology. But his tail thing, as well as like some of the design, looks a little bit more like, I don't know if it's Egyptian, but it looks more like bones as well, so it's like more towards to that era maybe. I don't know what I'm talking about. Not even era, like just desert-ish place, oasis kind of thing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just ignore me. But yeah, also for the wings, I didn't know how to draw them, so I had a reference of him and the wings looked a little bit more stiff, but in the artwork they look so like flowy and not like a cape. But in the reference that I had for his backside, it definitely looked like it was more of a cape, so it looks like it was more cinched, or less cinched at the back, so it didn't look like it's just coming from one point. So I was a little bit confused on how I wanted to draw it. Unfortunately, it came out a little bit more stiff as well, so I kind of wish I gave it a little bit more movement, but I feel like that's just like in general for the whole piece. I could have gave his hair a little bit more movement, could have moved the petals, part of his clothes, the necklace and stuff could have been moving and stuff. He just looks awkwardly there. Yeah, and I think I did poorly with the one knee that's the closest to us, trying to make it look the right length. If it's kind of coming towards us a little bit, it's at a weird angle, that's for sure. I used the lasso tool to do some quick petals again, filled it in with this nice beautiful red color so that we can get some more of that red into it. I blur it quite a bit so it's not as strong, but hopefully, I think actually that's it for Rei, other than duplicating the layer and changing it so that Rei is kind of more in the focus. But yeah, I think that is it for this illustration. I hope you guys don't mind the kind of choppier footage this time, because it was a long process in terms of trying to finish, like, kind of fit all the footage into about half an hour. So yeah, I'll try to do more full body pieces so we can get some practice in, and you guys can watch me struggle with it a little bit in the future. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll talk to you guys next time with the next video. Bye!